Hey art nerds, I created this watercolor illustration to celebrate the successful funding of 7-inch Kara Volume 2 on Kickstarter. Funding ended on August 10th, and I know it's been a little bit of time, but we've been busy packing to move to Louisiana, so it's taken me a little bit longer to get this video out to you guys. So this is a watercolor illustration of Kara and Naomi from my webcomic 7-inch Kara. In fact, that is the comic that we were funding on Kickstarter, and it's a companion piece to the launch illustration. I'm going to link the tutorial in the cards and in the description below if you're interested in checking that out as well. It's watercolor and ink on watercolor paper, and it's a bit different from my usual process. And the coloring sheet of this is available if you'd like to color it on your own. The materials I use for this piece are Arteza Expert Cottonrag watercolor paper, and I do want to caveat that while I'm using that paper, I don't recommend it. There are better cotton rag papers on the market, but I'm trying to use up what I have, and since I purchased it way back to review, I wanted to go ahead and finish up the pad. I'm also using a Sakura Pigma FB to ink. This is a waterproof and alcohol-proof brush pen. I love this pen. If you watch my other tutorials and reviews, you'll hear me mention this brush pen a lot. And I'm using my Daily Driver watercolor palette. It's a mix of Winsor Newton, Daniel Smith, Magello, Holbein, Sennelier, M. Grams, and lots of other brands that I've come to love over the years through reviewing different watercolor palettes. And I'll have a link to that in the description below as well if you're interested in checking out what's in my Daily Driver palette. And I'll have links to all of the materials that I use for this piece in the description as well. If you're new to my work, if you're new to my channel, hi, welcome. I'm Becca. I'm a comic artist and sometimes art educator. I love sharing what I've learned about comics and art here on YouTube and through classes that I teach in person. While working on 7-inch Kara, I've learned a lot about watercolor, and 7-inch Kara inspired me to try new products and techniques in order to continue growing and improving as an artist. Lilliputian Kara has served as the inspiration behind much of this channel and my long-standing art blog, so funding the Kickstarter is not only a huge milestone for me, but a big milestone for the art educational work I do as well. Seven-inch Kara is a long-form watercolor comic aimed at younger readers. The first volume hit print in 2014, and it's also available to read as a webcomic, and that launched in 2017 as part of the Ink Drop Cafe webcomic collective. The first 6 chapters are available online in their entirety, and Chapter 7 has recently started airing since we came back from hiatus. So Volume 2 is chapters 5 through 8 of 7-inch Kara, and a bonus Naomi chapter that's not going to run on as a webcomic. It's book exclusive. And much of that Naomi chapter is has been shared as process here on YouTube in my comic prep and process series. So I'll make sure I'll link that if you guys are interested in how I make watercolor comics. Volume 2 also includes a guest art gallery of beautiful art and illustration that I've commissioned of Kara and Naomi from various artists over the years at dozens of different conventions. So if you enjoy looking at other people's art, if you like seeing other people's take on characters, that is included in the back of Volume 2. There's also a Making 7-inch Kara section in the back of Volume 2. It's not meant to be like a complete tutorial since I've written about making comics since I graduated from SCAD with an MFA in 2012, but it is meant to kind of excite people and get them interested in making their own comics. There's also a Volume 1 recap of 4 Coma comics. If you're not familiar with 4 Coma comics, they are 4-panel comics that read vertically, kind of like Azumanga Daioh, and it's one of my favorite formats for humorous comics. And there's also a thanks section in the back to thank all of the supporters and backers who helped make this Kickstarter a reality. Volume 2 took 6 years to make and is over 200 pages of watercolor comic. It's been a huge influence on the work that I do on the blog and here on YouTube. Painting 7-inch Kara has inspired me to seek out new products, expand my horizons, and take more classes. I still have a lot to learn about watercolor, but Kara inspires me to continue my work and provides the drive I need to continue to improve. Volume 1 of 7-inch Kara has been in print since 2014. I first printed it through CreateSpace, which is a print-on-demand service, and I've been selling it at conventions across the country ever since. And as people look at Volume 1, or they look at the other watercolor art and illustration at the table, I often hear other artists lament that they wish they could be good at watercolor, or they'd like to learn watercolor but don't have the time, or they've tried to learn watercolor and they really struggle with it. And it was these experiences with other artists who wanted to pick up this art form, who wanted to learn how to use this art material, that inspired me to start sharing my experiences, sharing my reviews, and sharing my tutorials here on YouTube. I really wanted to make watercolor accessible. I had to learn watercolor bit by bit piecemeal. I didn't take specific watercolor classes while I was at SCAD, although I did take a whole entire master's degree worth of comic classes. Watercolor classes were just not available to me in my graduate studies. So a lot of what I've learned about watercolor, I've learned through taking workshops at art stores, through watching other tutorials and reading other tutorials online, and through hanging out with other watercolor artists. And watercolor comics are very, very different from traditional watercolor and are even different from watercolor illustration. And I wanted to share those experiences, share what I learned, and hopefully inspire other artists through the blog and through this channel. So a lot of 7-inch Kara chapters 6, 7, and 8 have and shoot, now that I'm thinking about it, the Naomi bonus chapter have been used as tutorials, they've been used as video, they've been used as an opportunity to show other people how I do what I do. Now, I'm not at all pretending like this is the only way or the best way to do it. I'm still learning, I'm still figuring things out myself. I have 2 more volumes of 7-inch Kara to do, so I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot in that process. But if me sharing my experiences can inspire someone else, or can give them ideas, or just get them excited enough to try making their own things, then it's definitely worth the time and effort. The Volume 2 Kickstarter launched on July 17th, I want to say, and it had a fairly strong launch. The first 3 days were phenomenal. We raised about $3,500, almost half of the amount we were looking to raise total. But I was juggling a lot. Not only were we launching Volume 2 on Kickstarter, a launch that was 6 years in the making and that we'd spent 2 months preparing for in advance, but we were driving back to Louisiana from Nashville to get married. And then after we got married, we planned on moving to Louisiana. So we were juggling a lot. I definitely thought I could juggle all that, and I wanted to use the trip to Louisiana to share some of what has inspired 7-inch Kara with you guys, to share the area I grew up in, to share just how beautiful Louisiana can be, and to try and inspire other artists to tell stories set in their own homes. but it ended up being possibly too much, and I wasn't able to focus as much time and attention to the Kickstarter as I would have liked. I had a lot of fun streams planned, and lack of internet access just made that not feasible. So when I launch volume 3 in a few years, I definitely know what I'm going to do differently. I was very nervous about the Kickstarter the whole way through. For me, this was make or break, the culmination of 6 years of work. Not only 6 years of painting comics, but 6 years of making tutorials that use this comic and making field tests that use the characters from this comic. And I really wish I'd been able to reach out to my YouTube friends in a more salient way, because I feel like Twitter really had my back. They really supported me, but I feel like I could have reached out to you guys a bit more. So next time, you're definitely going to be hearing more from me about Kickstarter. And y'all, the mid-campaign slump is real. There was a week there where we might see $5 pledges, $3 pledges, but there wasn't a whole lot of growth, and I was so nervous. This was the point where my mom had hit my car, and we were basically kind of trapped in Louisiana, and I felt so helpless because I had all these ideas designed for Nashville to stimulate interest and growth that I just couldn't implement. So I was definitely holding my breath through this campaign. But I am so grateful for all the support and encouragement I received along the way. Like I mentioned, Twitter was just fantastic, which really means a lot to me because I've spent about 10 years on Twitter being part of the comics community and contributing to the comics community. So to get some of that support in return just really meant a lot to me, and it really showed me that people had my back on there. And y'all, I just cannot convey how much that means. And I'm going to talk more about the Kickstarter process, what I would do differently, and what I would change on the Kickstarter blog. So if you're a Kickstarter backer or if you're one of my wonderful patrons on Patreon, keep an eye out for that. I'm definitely going to talk more about the nitty-gritty over there. For those of you who are interested in running your own campaign or you're just curious about how the sausage is made. So 7-inch Kara Volume 2 hit its funding goal right before the Kickstarter ended. I would say like August 9th, August 9th. And we did manage to raise about $1,000 more above the goal. We weren't able to hit any of the stretch goals that I was super excited about, but that's okay. We're still going to be able to print Volume 2, and really that's what means the most to me. And you guys have no idea how much anxiety I had asking for $7,500 to print the book. You don't know how many friends were like, really? Really? You think you can raise that much money? Really? You? And how much that ate me up inside. That was really hard to get over. You know, I kept thinking about that in my head. And but I thought it was worth taking the risk. I'd put in 10 years of, you know, comic community, conventions, sharing tutorials, sharing resources, and working on 7-inch Kara. And that was the amount of money we needed to bulk print Volume 2. So we want to go with an offset printer that will allow us to print about 1,000 copies of Volume 2. And it's going to allow us to offer a wholesale price to comic shops, libraries, and schools, which is really important to me. I want comics to be more affordable, and indie comics already face so many hurdles in order to compete on the mass market. And pricing is definitely one of those big hurdles. So I'm really happy that we're able to go with a bulk offset printer, and we're able to order more copies and offer them more affordably. I had hoped that we would hit the reprint Volume 1 stretch goal, possible. Unfortunately, we didn't, but that might be something worth reconsidering in the future once things are a little bit more settled. That would allow me to offer both volume 1 and volume 2 at the same print quality, because we're hoping to up the print quality, since CreateSpace, which is who we went with for volume 1, has kind of limited options when it comes to what you can do with your book and what kind of paper you can do with your book. And bulk offset printing allows many, many more options, from eco-friendly printing to heavier paper stock to colored papers to embossing on the cover to different cover finishes. You really have more options. And this is something I want to talk about in depth. I really want to share this process with you guys on the Kickstarter blog. So I want to talk about the Kickstarter timeline now, since we're already a little bit later than we expected to be. And I want to be honest about this, because this is, as someone who's backed 80 Kickstarters, this is like my #1 gripe about other people's Kickstarters, is a lack of communication. People want to share good news. They're excited about sharing milestones, but they have a hard time talking about when things don't go quite to plan, or when things are out of their hands, or when they've had to make other decisions. And that's something I resolved to try and be good about with my own Kickstarter, is the transparency. So the Kickstarter timeline has adjusted a little bit, but I don't think it's going to affect our December ship date. So originally, we were supposed to get back into Nashville on like July 29th. And that was going to give us 2 weeks to finish up volume 2 and get it to the printer before we needed to move out of the apartment by September 1st. Unfortunately, my mom hit my car, and my car was in the shop for 2 weeks, and we were kind of stuck in Louisiana. So we couldn't do any of the things we planned on doing. We couldn't start moving, and I couldn't really work on the book because I hadn't brought the materials necessary. I just didn't think I was going to be in Louisiana for a month and a half. And that's a lot of art supplies, as my art nerds will tell you. So that definitely went a little bit catawampus and a little bit out of plan. And then we had planned on working on the book in Nashville for a little bit, getting it off to the printer, and then packing up to move. However, the person who came to help us move doesn't have that kind of time flexibility, so we're having to pack and move right away. So what I plan on doing is, as soon as we have moved into our temporary apartment, I'm going to focus on finishing the book and getting it sent out to the printer. So there's a few things that need to be done before I can send the book out to the printer. It is mostly done. Almost all the comic pages are finished. Most of the information is there, but there is some cleanup work. So I need to draw the 4 Coma comics that are going before chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8. And those comics are going to recap volume 1. And I want about 2 4 Coma comics, or 2 4-panel strips per chapter. So that's about 8 pages of comic art left to do. I need to do the thanks page, and if you are a backer on the Kickstarter, I sent out a Google survey in an email asking how you wanted to be credited in the thanks page, since people have asked me about having their kids' names listed instead of theirs. So if you haven't responded to that yet, I'm going to send the form out again just so I don't miss anybody. But that is important for me before we send the books out to the printer. Then I need to correct some of the images that were just not quite right in the CreateSpace proof that I've shown you guys a few times. Some of them were a little dark. Some of them ended up getting cropped in a way I didn't want them to be cropped. So those need to be fixed before we can send it off. I also need to finish fixing up all the credits in the guest art gallery. So as I've commissioned people over the years, I've saved their information, I've saved their business cards, but with social media, people leave Twitter, people leave Tumblr, or they make new accounts. And I want to make sure that everybody's information is correct at time of printing. I can't like future-proof it, but I want it to be as correct as possible when we print it so you guys can discover new artists. And then we need to send it to our selected offset printer for proofs, and then we can go from there. But I promise I will check in with you guys with the offset printer proofs, because I am definitely looking forward to the second stage of revisions. So once the books have been sent off, I'm looking forward to working on the 7-inch Kara activity pack. I've always wanted to develop fun activities to engage younger readers, and I'm looking forward to coming up with activities that invite younger readers to explore the world of 7-inch Kara, putting themselves in her tiny shoes. So if you're a parent or a teacher and you have ideas that you'd like to send my way regarding the activity pack, I'd love to hear them. I definitely want to work on some storytelling activities. I want to work on some perspective shifting activities, and I also want to work on some activities that get kids outside in the natural world identifying plants and animals. But I'm definitely open to hearing your suggestions, since you guys probably know what your own young readers enjoy the most. I'm also looking forward to putting more work into the coloring sheets. I have several of them already finished and several halfway done, but I definitely want to put more work into them and finish those up. And then the paper child activity is for the most part finished, but I'm kind of tempted to make a few more paper children, maybe some of Tanner, maybe even some of Naomi as a Lilliputian herself, just to add some variety to that pack. The paper child pack was really well received, and it was a lot of fun for me to make it. And I have 2 video tutorials that go with that pack to show you how to do it. Once I'm all settled in, unpacked, and I have a recording situation set up again, because since I'm moving, I can't record, I want to record the Kara and Naomi sketches, the Kara and Tanner sketches, and the You as a Lilliputian commissions. That's something that I think is going to be a lot of fun, and I want to do those as streams whenever possible, because I think that's a great opportunity to get other people invested in drawing and to maybe inspire some younger artists to start making their own comics. And it's a great opportunity to kind of walk people through my artistic process. Every artist has their own process. I am a huge nerd for other people's processes. Naoki Urasawa's documentary series, Mamben, where he goes and he interviews other artists and he spends time in their studio, and most of the show is just them drawing at their desk working on manga. That's one of my favorite series, and it's something I like to watch when I'm bummed out. So process is a big deal for me. It's one of my big passions, and it's one of the things that pushes me to continue to share tutorials and reviews with you guys. Every artist has a different process, and finding the process that's right for you is really important. I do not pretend like my process is the best process for everyone, but sometimes knowing how other people work can answer questions and can remove obstacles. So sharing my drawing process, opening that up and making it something more community oriented and engaging is something I'm really looking forward to sharing with you guys. And hopefully I'll be working on those in October and November so they can ship out in December. If you missed your chance to order 7-inch Kara Volume 2 during the Kickstarter, there will be a pre-order option available on my site. And I want to let you guys know that my Kickstarter backers are going to receive their books first. So even if you pre-order, my first obligation is to fulfilling the Kickstarter. That's something else that I've noticed with other campaigns that I didn't always like, is that sometimes people will be selling books at cons before they have them available to Kickstarter backers, which as someone who doesn't go to SPX every year, or doesn't go to TCAF, or doesn't go to MoCA every year, I kind of take issue with that. And that's something I didn't want to perpetuate with my own backers, with my own supporters, especially because I know a lot of you are not convention going people. Comic cons are not usually your jam, and that's not a good reason for you not to get your books first, because you guys were the ones who made printing Volume 2 possible in the first place. So if you pre-order a book through the website, you're going to get it at about the same time as the Kickstarter backers, but they are my first priority, so I'm going to make sure that they do get it first. And you guys can check out my website at natosoup.com. You guys can check out 7-inch Kara chapters 1 through 6 at 7inchkara.com and 7inchkara.tumblr.com if you're still using Tumblr. You guys can check out more of my art on Instagram.com/natosoup. I've been giving out so many URLs and I always have kind of trouble remembering the order of operations for them. If you just want to hang out and chat with me, you can chat with me on Twitter at twitter.com/natosoup, or you can join my art-centric Discord server, the Paintbox, and I'll put a link to all of those things down in the description below. If you'd like access to the Kickstarter exclusive blog and you didn't back the Kickstarter, my patrons on Patreon are also going to have access to that as a big thank you, because my Patreon doesn't fund the comic. My Patreon funds all the art outreach stuff I do, so I thought it was only fair that they have access to that as well. And you can join me over there at patreon.com/natosoup. There are a lot of things that I wanted to do during the Volume 2 Kickstarter, from Paint With Me All Day watercolor streams to more art tutorials, that I just wasn't able to do at the time. And now that I'm moving, I'm not really able to do that as well. But I look forward to sharing streams and art workshops with you guys again in the near future. So cross your fingers for a quick and easy move, and cross your fingers that I can find all of my art supplies without having to hunt and peck for them. Things are going to get a little weird here on the channel in terms of updates, and even weirder on the blog in terms of updates, just because my priority is going to be moving and getting unpacked and getting set up again. But I promise, once I'm settled in, things are going to resume as normal. So your patience is much appreciated. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching this watercolor illustration come to life. Not only did we use Arteza Expert watercolor paper, a Sakura Pigma FB, although that was done off camera since it was inked while I was still in Louisiana, and my Daily Driver watercolor palette full of professional grade watercolors, but we also augmented with Derwent and Supercolor 2 watercolor pencils. I have a bunch of watercolor pencil reviews recorded. They just need to be queued up. So if you're interested in watercolor pencils and you want to find the ones that are right for you, keep an eye on this channel. That series of reviews is coming up in the near future. And I also look forward to sharing the Kara and Naomi sketches, the Kara and Tanner sketches, and the You as a Lilliputian commissions, as well as resuming my normal streaming schedule. If you guys have any ideas for streams, if there's anything you'd like to learn how to do, let me know either in the comments or reach out to me on Discord or through Twitter. And if you're interested in more watercolor tutorials, I've got a bunch of different series here on this channel in my playlist section. The front page is full of great watercolor tutorials to help inspire you. And I also have a watercolor skin tones tutorial coming up in the near future. That was originally a stream, and the full tutorial will be available as a time-lapse tutorial soon. So I hope you guys are looking forward to it. I want to thank you guys again for your support with the Kickstarter. It really means a lot to me. Some of you really went above and beyond in helping me spread the word and tell other people. And you guys have no idea how helpful and important that is. So many artists just don't quite have the reach they need, and just by giving it a signal boost or saying a kind word about a project, you can introduce a brand new fan to somebody's work, and it costs you nothing at all. So I really appreciate those of you who help me spread the word about this project and help me get the word out. I have spent so much time working on 7-inch Kara. I really love this project, and I really love Kara and Naomi, and I hope you guys will love them too. So if you're new to the world of 7-inch Kara, you can read the first 6 chapters at 7inchkara.com, and then you can hop on the paint box and let me know what you guys think. So like I said earlier, all of the links are going to be down in the description below. I'm also going to have an abbreviated transcript of this video in the description since I had to write it as a script. So have a wonderful day, guys. I hope to see you guys again really soon, and I hope you're looking forward to 7-inch Kara Volume 2.